welcome. You're watching NDTV. I'm Rishika Barua. This is the one-stop shop show where we answer all your questions on living with COVID. Joining us as always is a panel of expert doctors to help us navigate this new normal. Dr. Manoj Kumar M. Patil, he's a consultant endocrinologist and diabetologist from the Sushrut Hormone Clinic and Shraddha Hospital, I beg your pardon, from Dhule. We have Dr. Pia Balani Thakkar, she's a consultant endocrinologist and diabetologist from the Bombay Hospital and Medical Research Center, joining us from Mumbai. We also have Dr. Magesh Balakrishnan, he's a consultant cardiologist at the Columbia Asia Hospital in Bangalore. It's been observed, doctors, that patients are extremely reluctant at this moment to visit hospitals. They fear infection, as a result of which many patients who actually need chronic disease management for other diseases other than COVID are not seeking that medical attention. Dr. Patil, what would you like to tell such patients?
First point to be noted that the doctors are for helping the patients, and while doing so they are also at a risk of getting infection. We are also taking the various precautionary measures at each step to prevent the transmission of COVID to the patient's relatives and even among us, making the social distancing as a norm and following the compulsion of the face mask. At the entry point, we screening for the symptoms of the patient as well as screening of the temperature with infrared thermometer. And we advise the patient to book prior appointment and fix the timing so that the waiting period of the patients remain lesser in case of the hospital premises. We are using all precautionary measures including the mask, the face shield, gloves, even PPE kit, and we are cleaning all surfaces where there is a frequent contact is there. Prior entering the chamber, we advise the patient to wash their hands or use the sanitizer. If patient need to be examined, we do need the minimum needed examinations, and after every patient, we clean the examination table with a sodium hypochlorite solution. Even the mopping of the flooring has been done with a sodium hypochlorite solution 3 times a day.
All right, Dr. Krishnan, if I can come to you at the moment, what about procedures like, measurement of blood pressure, ECGs, EEGs? Are those procedures safe to be done at this time, and what are the kind of extra precautions that are being taken?
Well, like the previous doctor, what he has said, one must understand that the way this is transmitted is through the air, through droplets, aerosol, or it is through surface contact. So with respect to the air, yes, you wear your masks so that all of them, so that you prevent the droplet transmission or the aerosol. And of course, the surface contact, what you do is you can do 2 things. One, either you make the surface contact risk reduction by disposing of the surface which is in contact with the patient, or you disinfect it. So here, when, for example, like palpating for the pulse or auscultating the chest or measuring the BP or the ECG, you can use, for example, ECG, you would use the disposable chest leads, and after it is done, the wires and things, our surface is disinfected with your sanitizer. Now, let's say if you are to check measure the blood pressure, the cuff that is encircling the arm is again surface cleaning of it is done for every patient. Again, the doctors use disposable gloves for every patient, and when they caught, you use your disposable tissues. So in that sense, no surface is basically left virgin for the next patient to get the infection from.
Dr. Balani, the other big question that a lot of our viewers have is, when do you actually go physically and see your doctor? At what point, is teleconsult not enough? At what point do phone calls and video calls actually need to translate into a physical visit?
So COVID is not being very choosy about whom it affects, but it definitely does have a greater negative impact on people who are elderly, people with chronic medical conditions like heart disease, diabetes, hypertension, etc. So firstly, I'd like to say that telemedicine has become a game changer where it comes to helping patients and doctors maintain their personal safety while at the same time optimizing control of their chronic conditions and taking care of their general health. So for my practice, for example, in particular, a lot of my patients are seniors, they have diabetes. So for me, with telemedicine, I am able to keep in touch with these patients, but at the same time, I'm helping avoid unnecessary exposure, unnecessary travel. They are avoided long hours in crowded waiting rooms, staying out of clinics and hospitals, which generally have a high viral load. Also, at the same time, because doctors are generally a little less busy, I find I'm getting more time talking to my patients over video consultations. And that's why it's a good platform to maintain general health. But having said that, telemedicine can never become a complete substitute for face-to-face consultations. Right. So as a result of which, in-person consultations are always going to catch way more than what a teleconsultation is going to pick up from patients.
Right.
So if there's any acute change in a patient's condition, if there are any severe signs and symptoms, let's say a deterioration of vision, severe vomiting, diarrhea, a severe pain, abdominal, or any of that sort of thing, it is imperative for the patient to get back into the hospital or meet his consultant face-to-face for that matter. It just doesn't make sense that today I have an acute chest pain, I don't go into the ER for fear of contracting COVID, and tomorrow I die of a heart attack.
All right. So it's not like, the other chronic conditions have just dissipated in the times of a pandemic. They're very much there and need to be addressed. And what doctors essentially saying is that you need to monitor your own symptoms very closely and report them to your healthcare professional. Dr. Balakrishnan, why are people with cardiac diseases at a greater risk of the coronavirus, and what are some of the complications that they may get?
Okay, I would just like to clarify that point. The ability of the virus to infect a heart patient or any other patient is the same. It's not different. But once the patient, somebody is having the infection, the risk of having complications is more in a cardiac patient than the others. Now, you must understand that the virus can affect the individual in two ways. One, by directly affecting the lungs and causing damage, or by abnormally stimulating the immune system. So there's an exaggerated response, which we call a cytokine storm, which essentially damages the membranes, the biological membranes. So when it affects the blood vessel of the heart, people tend to have heart attacks. When it affects the heart muscles, people tend to have what is called myocarditis, or a weakening of the heart, and they die of cardiac failure. Or if sometimes due to abnormal rhythms initiated by this very same process, patient can have a cardiac arrest. Now, the other method is it affects the rest of the body, leading on to multi-organ failure or the lung itself. So primarily, when the lung gets affected, the heart gets a hit because the oxygen supply to the heart is decreased, the right-sided pressure of the heart is more. So now the point here is, when a cardiac patient has lesser ability to sustain this strain, and therefore they succumb to it much earlier than any other person.
Dr. Balani, why is it important to manage conditions like diabetes at the time of a pandemic? What are the extra precautions or extra management that it requires, given the fact that diabetes patients again are at a higher risk of developing complications as a result of the coronavirus?
So, of course, the same holds true for diabetes, Rishika, as it is for heart-related issues as well. People with diabetes, due to their immunity defects, again have a higher risk of developing complications, of getting sicker, landing up into the ICU, getting, the risk of mortality is much higher in people with diabetes, again, as compared to the general population. But more importantly, also, the control of diabetes is not just from the point of view of this pandemic alone. Diabetes per se, if has long-standing poor control, can increase the risk of diabetic complications in people as well. For example, heart attacks, paralysis, loss of vision, kidney impairment, amputations, all of these are the long-standing risks of poorly controlled diabetes.
Right.
So therefore, maintaining diabetes control is not just for the now of the pandemic, but is also at the same time as a health insurance for future, to avoid the future complications of diabetes as well.
All right, very interesting. But Dr. Patil, patients who are suffering from diabetes or endocrine disorders for that matter, should they be managing their conditions at home? And when is it essential for them and absolutely essential for them to physically visit a doctor?
Patient with a diabetes and endocrine disorder, including thyroid disorder, needs to frequent monitoring. For diabetic patient, if they have glucometer at home, they can usually monitor their sugar by self-monitoring of blood glucose, and they can teleconsult with their doctors. But some of the diabetic tests and even a hormonal test needs a laboratory facility. Patient can teleconsult their doctor and discuss regarding the disease course. If it is stable, then patient can continue the same medications till the situation gets better. If there is necessity for blood testing, and then patient can use the facility of home blood collection, it's better with taking the precaution. or otherwise he can go to the nearby laboratory with all precautions and test the samples, and then can teleconsult with the respective doctors regarding the disease course. And there are few conditions where the essential to visit the doctor's clinic, such as the complication in diabetes like diabetic foot and gangrenous changes, or there are infection in diabetes which need to be treated with the IV antibiotics. Even any form of severe hypoglycemia or hyperglycemia or diabetic ketoacidosis need to be clinic visit. Also, the patient with endocrine disorder where the other major organ dysfunction occurs, such as kidney, liver, eyes, they need to be consulted in clinic consultation. And preferably those who are newly diagnosed, such as gestational diabetes, even the type 1 diabetes, type 2 diabetes, better to have first consultation as a face-to-face consultation, which get lots of space for communication and the exact education regarding the disease course.
All right, very interesting. I think those are some of the key indicators that patients need to watch out for. There are a whole host of questions, of course, that continue to remain unanswered. So do stay tuned. We're slipping into a very short break, but our panel of expert doctors will be live with us on the other side. Stay tuned.
Knowledge Partner, USV, your reliable healthcare partner.
Welcome back. You're watching Living with COVID. Well, the big question that a lot of patients at this moment have is, what about elective surgeries? What about those who've been awaiting elective surgeries? Dr. Balakrishnan, what's the advice that you'd give them? Is it a good time to have elective surgeries? Perhaps hold it off for another couple of months? What would you suggest?
Well, it's a very easy question. Single liner, no. Please do not get any elective procedures now. For obvious reasons, a hospital is any day a more risky place than your own home. So stay at home until the situation changes so that it's safer. Now, look, it's quite simple because there are quite a lot of theories about the way this virus is spreading. There's no absolute proof because of the short duration of our experience with COVID. So until that time, I think we better stay safe and wait for the situation to change.
Right. I think it's very interesting because we're talking about surgeries. If I can just ask you a very quick follow-up question as well. What about those who need emergency surgeries? We know that for anyone who needs to have a surgery urgently or needs an interventional procedure, a COVID test is mandated. But what's the process that is being followed in terms of emergency surgeries?
Yes. So first of all, some certain tests are done like a CT chest or something to have a certain obvious evidence whether the person is having the infection or not. Now, even if that is not helpful, then we have, at least in our place, we have a separate OT theatre which has what is called a negative ventilation,
right,
wherein there is no rebreathing of the air. So we take such separate corridors, separate post-op care, so in such a way that they are isolated and they don't end up spreading the infection to other people or the staff. So this is the kind of measures that we take in case of emergencies.
All right, very interesting. Dr. Palani, any tips that you'd like to share with diabetes patients at this time, how they can manage these conditions effectively at home? Exercise has been a huge challenge. Many people not stepping out for a walk. Gyms, of course, are closed. How can you effectively manage these conditions at home?
So you're right, Ashika. With this whole pandemic, people are eating more, exercising less, sleeping more, sitting on their phones, sedentary much more. So general activity has become less. Weight has gone up. So with all my patients, I find two varieties, some of them who've become more conscientious, using the time to better their lifestyles. But a big subsection of patients is also just, getting out of control. So a few things that one could do to take control, basically, first thing is to be vigilant. The question is to answer, am I in control? And for that, I feel a simple tool like a glucometer is an excellent way to figure out what are one's sugars. Nowadays, where going to the lab especially is taboo, it's a simple way to understand, are my sugars high, low, do I need to take action? Secondary, of course, is then eat right, eat healthy. One bag of chips, 300 calories, we can pack down in 5 minutes. But losing that is a tough task.
Right.
So therefore, what my advice would be mindful about your eating. For all the diabetics, avoid the unnecessary salt, sugar, unhealthy fats. have nutrient-rich foods, having all these, supplements of vitamins, etc., doesn't make sense when you can choose foods which are rich in vitamins, minerals, etc. Of course, like you said, exercise, we have to get back into that old rhythm. Start with some light walking, maybe 5 to 10 minutes a day. There are so many videos available these days. We can find some exercise that kind of fits our liking. Can increase that maybe to 15 minutes twice a day as well. Just helping out in home chores can burn a lot of calories as well. Another important thing that people with diabetes need to follow is foot care, because simple small injuries can result in large ulcers. This is the wrong time to get all of these things. So as a result of which, I would advise people to check their feet every day, make sure they wash and dry them, use closed footwear, even at home, to avoid injuries, etc. And then finally, take your medication, your prescribed medication regularly. A lot of people are pill counters. I take 17 tablets a day. People are often trying to experiment with dropping one tablet at a time to see whether whether they stay in control. Just a wrong idea to stop or start or change medications without talking to your primary healthcare provider.
All right.
And if in case, then finally, sugars are deranged, vision is getting blurry, tingling, numbness, things are getting severe, talk to your healthcare provider. And most importantly, maintain your routine appointments with your healthcare provider, even if it is over teleconsultation. Don't wait for this whole COVID thing to end before getting back to them.
All right. Don't wait for the coronavirus to end, because, you don't want to take the risk of worsening any chronic condition that you already may be suffering from. Dr. Patil, the other important issue, and a lot of women especially have asked this question, is about women who have thyroid and PCOS issues. These are, again, associated with a sedentary lifestyle, like the doctor was just mentioning. Are they at more risk, and what should they be doing at this time?
Really, the PCOS and thyroid disorder are one of the most common endocrine problems. If a patient is newly detected thyroid or PCOS disorder, better to have the face-to-face consultation in clinic patient. And if the patient is following the case, then he should consult the doctors by teleconsultation, as it requires the frequent monitoring. So by teleconsultation, he can assess the situation. Doctor can assess the situation and can continue the same dosage for the period. And if required the monitoring, as the patient needs to be laboratory facility, the thyroid is one of the factors that indirectly affect the immunity. So we have to remain euthyroid, and for that compliance with the medication is must. So we have to remain euthyroid. Then the risk of developing or having the severity of the COVID infection is same as that of the general population. Coming to the polycystic ovary syndrome, lockdown, there is lack of exercise, eating more unhealthy food, and all these leading into as one of the lifestyle modification is the important factor in management of PCOS.
Right.
And so patients should utilize this golden period to improve themselves. They can, as advised by ma'am, they can use these home-based exercises, as well as they can more focus on the diet, and so essentially they can improve themselves.
Dr. Balakrishnan, if I can bring you in, what about use of common areas, especially in offices? A lot of people are now back to the offices. What about use of cafeterias? What about use of, common toilets, or, elevators or narrow staircases? Given the fact that there's been a lot of talk about the coronavirus being airborne, what are some of the extra precautions that one can take in these spaces?
You must understand that, yes, as per the past, it has always been areas which have had people in close proximity, like the markets in Chennai or in Wuhan, or the religious places. So which means to say that infection has two components: the viral load and the duration of the exposure. Both of these are important. Now, it's easier said than done, but everybody should keep in mind that they try and maintain as much distance as possible. For example, out here in elevators, we have these spots which are like a minimum number of 3 or 4 or 5 people, not more than that.
Right.
And let's say your cafeteria, just go get your grub and get back to your private space, so that the exposure time is reduced. So these are some of the things that can be put into practice.
All right. These are unprecedented times, and it can't be business as usual in these times. I want to end by, one very last question, Dr. Balani, if I can come to you, on the mental aspect of this pandemic and the lockdown, staying indoors for a long period of time. It has had an adverse mental effect on a lot of people. A lot of people have, found this to be an extraordinary time to reconnect with friends and family, even if it's e-connecting with them. But how do you combat the mental aspect? What are some of the tips that you'd like to share with our viewers?
So Rishika, you're right. I mean, humans are basically social animals. We're not supposed to be sitting in lockdown with no predictable end in sight. It has led to a lot of fear, anxiety, depression amongst a lot of folks. We are kind of cut off from soothing human contact, hugs, kisses, handshakes, which are our social rituals that are all now tinged with danger. Elderly are more lonely. There's more domestic violence. Children are not playing with children. Even people who are coming back recovered from the virus are being shunned by society, and we're just faced with discouraging news all around us. So when I'm getting calls from people, half the time it's really due to stresses, mental stresses that are worsening their physical condition. So what I try and encourage them with is a few things is try and maintain or stick to a normal routine. Every day, get up in the morning, get ready, have a plan, have a sense of purpose. If that is not possible to do, then find new things to do. Explore those hobbies, pursue those interests that you always meant to do and you never got a chance to do. Secondly, of course, physical exercise, the neurochemicals released in our brain with yoga, meditation, exercise, all of them actually impart happiness. I can't overemphasize the importance of a good diet, avoiding smoking, alcohol. Of course, staying in touch with your loved ones, that's a big stress buster. And if in case, however, the depression, anxiety remain unmanageable, do not hesitate to contact a professional for this. It is not a sign of weakness. Right. Finally, I would say that we need to maintain an attitude of gratitude that we are alive and well. Take this as a situation of not like I am so stuck, but this is finally my time for myself and my home. And probably just reframe our mindset towards that.
All right. So reframe your mindset if you have to and treat it as an attitude of gratitude. I think that's a great note to end the show on. Thank you so much, doctors, for sparing the time of day and answering our questions so very patiently. And thank you for watching.
Knowledge Partner, USV, your reliable healthcare partner.